guys, it's Laurie of Laurie's Sewing. I have 3 packages. Honestly, I have no idea which is which, so I'm just going to dig in, and I don't think that there'll be personal items. There could be. I don't know. We'll see, but I can't wait. Alright, so we'll start with this one right here, because I think I know what this one is. At least, I hope I do. It's possible that I'm wrong, but based on the way it sounds, oh, I am correct. So this is the closure for the jacket that I made. Rather than using buttons, this is tangled up, but it is exactly what I thought it would look like, which is nice. So let me put this over here. Alright, so what will happen is this will be pinned to one side of the jacket, and this will of course be pinned to the other side of the jacket. And they'll be fairly close unless I choose to pin them, you know, farther out. One could even be on the point of a collar, and one could be further down on the front part of the jacket. Now I can review it and just tell you, this is, oh, bless you me, I got it off of Amazon. It looks like it's pretty well made. These may have been pinned or glued together, but I don't see any evidence of glue. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see blobs of glue anywhere. So they might have actually been made this way. And the pin part is very nicely attached. I don't see blobs of glue. And it's a nice closed, you know, loop there. The chain, I don't know. I don't know how sturdy this chain is, but it matches as far as the color. It looks really nice together. So there's that. This is really, really cute. It's actually cuter in person. I see some more details that I didn't quite catch on the picture. Like this little guy right here. He's kind of neat. Okay, wonderful. I'll set this aside. Okay, so we have that one. Now, I don't know what this is. I know it's for me. It's got my name on it. So, let's just see. It could be something personal. I don't know. Oh, interesting. Because, frankly, I was going to talk about this anyway. This is my favorite tea. It's rose tea, premium Ceylon tea, and I love it. But the fun thing about this tea is it arrives in a wooden, do you say wooden or do you say wood box? I think it's like balsa wood. And I was literally down to 1 tea bag, so this could not have come at a better time. But here's the thing. Sorry about all the crackling and the crinkling. When this tea is done, like the one that I just finished in an identical box, I'm going to use these boxes. I am going to paint these or coat these with something, and then I'm going to line the inside with plastic, heavy plastic, like a used Ziploc bag, that kind of plastic. I'll just cut it and attach it somehow. I'll either use E6000 glue or something, and I might attach the little bottom or the top to the bottom like that to kind of lift it up just a wee bit. And then I'm going to put some dirt in here and grow seedlings. I already have 2, and I can't imagine why anybody would get rid of these adorable boxes. They're so sweet. This feels like fabric, or oh, well, What could this be? Oh, it's not a jelly roll, but I know what it is. Okay, so this is an ironing board cover. It is designed to fit long boards. My board isn't long, it's just ancient. Literally, it is almost 50 years old. It has an ultra thick pad. It's got a premium elastic cord with a lock. So I've not bought this one before. I go through ironing board covers like nobody's business, and this would be a new brand. I don't know, I've never heard of Incasa before, but I'm getting to the point where if I don't get some jelly roll fabric to work on that June Tailor Quilt As You Go Alexandra tote, I think I'm just gonna. Okay guys, so this video, this is just the beginning of this video, and I will see you in the morning. Okay guys, so I was just literally about to go to bed and something showed up. So let's take a look and see what it could possibly be. I'm sorry, my husband's playing the piano in the background. I mean, I'm not sorry, it's just that's what that noise is. That's what that music is. Okay. I think I know what it is. Are you ready? What in the world is this? We have a project. This is so exciting. Okay, so I will have to wait for tomorrow, but in like a minute, you will see this in all of its glory. I love these colors together. Oh, I think it's going to just be the sweetest, most precious color combination. And it is 2.5 inches, which is exactly what the requirements for the Alexandra tote. You are supposed to have, where does it say that? Or 20 2.5 inch by 42 inch strips. And these are, oh my gosh, I'm not sure. I know that's more than 20 though, so I think we're in good shape, and it looks perfect with the red. So we have a project for tomorrow. All right, I'll see you then. And just like that, it was morning and the very next day. This is the Quilt As You Go kit. It's a sew by number. Basically, that's the idea of Quilt As You Go. We're making the Alexandra tote, which is a 15 by 14 by 4 tote bag. The fabric that is required is about 6 to 10 different fabrics if you want your tote to look like it's been quilted. I chose to go with the option of 22.5 inch by 42 inch strips from a jelly roll. And then my lining fabric, of course, I just decided to make all in one. This is what I ended up getting because the Etsy fabric has not arrived. I'll just use it for something if it ever does arrive. This I thought was really cute, and of course, if you've been following me, you know how I love the teal and red combo. I've used it several times. Okay, how fun is it to open one? And this little ribbon is really cute. I think it's just a twill. Yep. I think it's so nice that we can have things printed on twill tape now. It just makes things fun. And that's really a cute little piece of twill tape that I will save, of course. Okay. And this is in such teeny tiny print, it's hard to read. Shansui, Shansui, I don't know how to pronounce it. Fabric and handcraft supplier. Shansui is named after the founder's hometown village, inspired by her lovely childhood. Keep on creating and conveying beauty of handcraft to the world. And that is her little card. Very cute. And of course I will save this. If I don't save it somewhere as a memento, I use these little cardstock cards as templates for things. Now we're going to take a look at this. I want to pick the, what was it, 20. Okay, I need 20. Oh, goodness. Such a fun project. Okay, so they are folded in half. If you're not familiar with jelly roll or how it is put together, there are basically two types. There are the fabrics that have been cut just straight, and then there are fabrics that have been pinked. I don't have a preference. Either one is fine. I know a lot of people do not like the pinked. They fear it takes some of their seam allowance away. And if I were a quilter, or if I were someone who was extremely super picky about that just on point 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, might be an issue for me. I don't know, but I tend to be a little bit more freewheeling than that. Okay, I don't know about that one. I like it, but I don't know if I want it for this. This one is a series of words indicating the Mediterranean. I don't know, we'll see. This is pretty. This is like a blender fabric, and I do like it, so we'll keep it with this. Ooh, very cute. Oh my, look at these little birdhouses. How fun. One, two, three, 4,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Okay, so here are the 20 that I will be using. One thing that happens, where did it go? Oh, there it is. For sure, when you have a jelly roll with pinked edges, is you get these little, I don't know if you can see them, little tiny, they look like sprinkles for a cake. Before I load up the sewing machine, I wanted to talk about thread. One of the things that I look at is color. Clearly, we would want to look at the color of our thread. The second thing I look at is how much of that thread do I have and how much of that thread am I going to need? So this is the blue thread that I just purchased for the jacket that I made, and it is a little bit too blue for me. This color I think I'm going to use, and it looks like I don't have as much on this spool as I do on this spool. And then white I think would just be too stark, although often I like the contrast of white against a darker background. So if I didn't have, I think I have another spool of this. And if I do, then this is what I'll be going with. But if I don't, I will not be unhappy with white. This is what I have. I don't think these are the same colors, are they? They claim to be 615, both of them. But I think there was a different dye lot. Yeah. I can definitely tell that this, even though it claims to be 615, it is from a completely different dye lot. I mean, this one is obviously lighter than this one. I don't know that that would translate once it was sewn, but there you have it. But then I also found this one. It is, okay, I think what I'm going to do is this, which is a risk because I don't know what the color number of this is, and it would take me 100 years probably to figure it out at the store. And I'm back. The sewing machine, I have loaded this Gutermann white in the bobbin and the greener of the threads that I just showed you in the needle. Alright, so here are the instructions, and they tell us that we need to watch their videos. So if you want to watch the Quilt As You Go technique videos, they have a YouTube channel, and they also link it through their website, which is junetailor.com. This is the guide drawing right here of what the batting will look like once we get it sorted out. We do not want to iron. I think I mentioned that before. It is imperative, in fact, that we do not iron anything as we're going along on this project until we're done getting all of these fabrics attached to the batting. At that point, I believe you can iron it. But to do any of it, even, you know, iron the seams as you go, no, 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 no. The batting will grow and distort and just get all mixed up, messed up, and you don't want that. And they tell you that in the instructions, like 2 or 3 times, I think. So we want to press the fabrics prior to cutting, but they've already been cut. There is a wonderful little trick, if you want to call it a hack, you can. And that is, if you have stitched 2 pieces of fabric together, it's like trying to turn pages in a new book. Okay, so let's say you've stitched these together. We are supposed to finger press, which is just literally using your hands, your fingers, your fingernail, without stretching or pulling, to just press it open. If they're treated with starch, these little strips of fabric will behave better in that way. So you don't even really have to iron them. You can just spray them with starch, go off and leave them and let them dry, and then come back and do your stitching, and everything just works out so well. So I may do that, I may iron. It just depends on how I go the first few times. I am probably going to iron out the fold line on each of these. But the first thing I want to do is kind of look to see how I want these fabrics to look. On the batting. The way this goes, if you've not done one before, is You start off with the first 2.5 inch strip, and you just go ahead and put it face up like so. Right along these lines. And you can see that they are 1/4 inch. I don't know if you can tell, but that's 1/4 inch on this side and 1/4 inch on the other side. We'll try this. That is not showing up. Back up a little bit. Okay. So there is the line right there. And if I fold this back to the line, there's 1/4 inch seam allowance of this piece of fabric right here. Now let's just pretend that for whatever reason I decided to use this as the second piece right here. I would put it down right sides together and stitch right along this line. And then I would open it up and just gently finger press it down on that stitch line. And then I would take fabric number 3. This is the rectangle number 3. So this piece of fabric is right sides together down on number 1. Stitch along that line at 1/4 inch and then open this up like so. And then I would do the same thing with number 4. I wouldn't use this piece of fabric, but we're just for example. And then number 5. I've got to get these sorted so I know what I'm doing. Like so. All right. And so forth and so on and so forth and so on until I get all the way to number 19, which is in this corner down here. That's number 18. This is number 19 right here. Now it tells you in your instruction sheet how many of these and what sizes you will need. So I have a photo now of from 8 all the way down to this one and across the top. So all I have to do is just look at my picture, and I can reference the photo for what I wanted where, and I can zoom in, I can zoom out. I think that's the way I'm going to do it instead of trying to write, because I do have to press this fold out in order to preserve a lot of the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these. Now that I know where they're going, I am going to gently pick up this and set it on the ironing board while I grab my Heirloom Stitcher's shape and press and my iron. They all look very lovely. That one's got just a little bit of a oomph right there, so take care of that real quick. Okay, so now I need to cut them according to the instruction sheet that comes with this Alexandra tote. Not all the way over, but just right where this line is, right here. So pop that right there. Line it up across the bottom. Double check my measurements. Yes. So 1 through 9, the way it lists it out is pieces 1 through 9, 14 inches. Believe I did that. I seriously, I started to stitch this down and I thought, what are you doing? Stop it. Yeah, right. Let's just pretend like this isn't here, because I am not taking this off. But oh my goodness, I am going to have to go back and just stitch over these lines because I am a total doofus. But, you know, I am just going to say I make mistakes like everybody else. Okay, here we go. We are supposed to cut out the pattern here. We're supposed to cut out the batting sheet, and we need to leave about 1 inch all the way around. Pinking shears. Now I'm going to need to take my basting spray, and I will be attaching this, my lining fabric, to the back of this. So the way I do this, if I have a lot of this spray adhesive that I need to do, is I'll do half of it. So for example, on this one, I am going to fold this to here, and I'm spraying this onto the batting, not my fabric. I've had bad experiences doing it that way. So spray, and then I'm just going to lay it down and then push from the middle out, the edges down, turn it around. I'll have to get that when I come back, and do the other side. Okay, so there have been like some issues. I'm starting to think I might also be allergic to raspberries, number one. Number two, I'm sewing this back together, you know, as I said I would do once I got the backing put on. And George decided, my sewing machine's name is George, and George decided that he did not want me to stitch this to this. No, I take that back. This to this. So the first time the thread looped, the second time the needle came unthreaded, and the third time I just said, you know what, whatever happens is going to be what it is. So I'll show you in a moment. Let me get a little closer here. So I think you can see there's like the secondary line of stitching. I might be able to pull this one out, but in complete and total honesty, it does not matter because this is likely going to be on a spot within the bag that no one will ever see. So I am not going to stress out. The potential raspberry allergy has already got me a little bit on edge. I want to enjoy the rest of my sewing project, so I'm going to. The reason that I popped back on here real quick before I finish this up is I wanted to remind you, it's at this point that we might all start thinking, oh, I need to press. No pressing until all of these pieces have been applied. As much as we want to hit it with the iron, it's a no-go. Okay, so the vast majority of the center part has been stitched by number. I am at 9 on this side and 8 on this side. I did change some of the colors a little bit, not too much. I added this one and I added this one. We need some of this green over here. And also, this is where it'll start to get shorter down here. So line up along this line right here on the interior part of the bag. I still don't know what they mean by don't pin too deep. Maybe they mean in here. I'm not sure what that meant. Okay. My preferred choice for this one is the little birdhouses, and it is supposed to be cut at piece number 20 and piece 26 are cut at 22 inches. So 26 would be on the other side. Let me move this out of the way and cut it at 22. So the bunnies and the birdhouses will be cut at 22. Okay. Put that over there for safekeeping and pin this one down on 20. And of course it will be right sides together, and we're going to stitch along that line and turn this way this time. Alrighty, so 20 has been stitched on, and now we will cut and apply 21. to decide which one I want to use. So the entire front has been stitched and I love it. Let's trim off. I haven't been cutting thread, so I don't think I need to trim that one. Okay, that one's fine. So I'm just going to flip it over and just trim off all the thread. And I have to be honest with you guys, I'm trying to decide with the way that George has been stitching, I don't think that machine quilting is a great idea with George. It's so pretty. I mean, I feel like it has a quilted look, and I don't know that adding anything to it would be, you know what, I'm not. I'm just going to continue in the construction phase. So the next step, after you get all of these stitched on, it tells you to, when the tote has been completely pieced, additional decorative quilting patterns may be stitched. Okay? After piecing is completed and any additional quilt stitching is done, press and pin all loose pieces of the top to hold them in place. Trim the tote flush with the outside solid printed lines. I wanted to show you how I'm doing it in this weird way, just in case it's something that will be helpful for you. So the way that I'm trying to trim this out to square off, sorry about the moving, to square off these pieces is I'm lining it up on the 18-inch mark. I know I can remember that, it's just arbitrary, but I can remember 18 and it won't be a big deal for me. So I don't have to count inches or anything. Now I've already done this, but I need to do that up there. So I'm going to roll this a couple times and then fold it out of the way like so. Now I can either just put a weight here or use my arm, whatever I need to do just to keep it away from the blade of my rotary cutter. And I'm taking this line right here and I'm going to line that up right on 18, right there. And that's actually, you know, I'm just kind of eyeballing it, but it's basically bang on the 18. Okay, and then I go up to here and I check to see that this part of the line is on 18, and it is. So I'm going to floof that back over, and I'm going to take my Omni Grid and just line it up on 18 and cut. Oops, it slipped. Well, of course it did. I'm trying to show you. That's the way my day has been. Okay, so we're on 18 there, and we're on 18 there, and just going to line it up on the edge like that, and then trim and trim. Notice I didn't move the ruler. I moved the cut off piece. We're going to fold this tote right sides together like so. And make sure that the top is even. And we're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and we're going to stitch right here, and we're going to stitch right here. When I have done that, when these two seams have been stitched, we'll box these corners. So the seams have been stitched right here, and the instructions say that we can serge them, we can leave them unfinished, however we want to do these open seams, we can do. You could take a piece of your jelly roll and create just little bindings to cover them up if you wanted to. You know, just cover each piece up. I'm not sure yet what I plan to do, but I'm kind of thinking I'm going to pink these. That is probably what I'm going to do, is just pink them, and they'll be fine. I don't have any problem with how they look. The one thing I do have issue with, though, is how small these little boxed corners are. So I am going to make mine bigger. This is literally the smallest. It doesn't look this small in the instructions where they do give example. I mean, they look huge. But this is just too tiny for this bag for me. It would not, I just don't think so. It's just going to be too small. So I'm going to cut mine out a little bit bigger, and I'll show you how to do that. So what I do is I take a template, and here is when these little things come in handy. It has to be square. This is. Okay. So what I do is I just set this down right here, like so, in the corner, however big I want this to be. This will probably give a 6-inch, maybe even an 8-inch boxed corner. So if I take and let's be completely honest here, nobody is going to look inside this bag and see this. For one thing, it'll be hidden. So whatever, I could use a Sharpie if I wanted to. Alright, so I'm just going to trace this little card right here. Alright, so if I cut here and cut here, all I'm doing is making a bigger box. Everything else is still the same. The side seam is still stitched, this is open, and this is still folded. Well, this is open and this is open, this is still folded, and there's a side seam. So that's what I'm going to do, is just make a bigger bottom. I want the bottom part of my bag to be wider. And I'll show you how I'm going to achieve that. So I'm going to cut, I want to make sure that everything is flat in here. No fold. Okay. And then I'm going to cut and cut. And I'm cutting on the inside of the line. There we go. Okay, and you're always left with these cute little pouches. Normally they don't have a hole here, but there we go. Okay, so I'm going to do this one. So now I open these up. The inside cut corner and the other inside cut corner, and I pull this like so, and I need an equal amount on this side and on this side. And I'm going to open out my seam allowance like so, and I'm going to stitch right here, right across here. And you can use, you know, clover clips, wonder clips, whatever you think you need to use to get this to stay together while you're transporting it to your sewing machine. And here it is, this first one. And I'm going to tell you a couple things, and then I'll take the camera over to the sewing machine so you can watch me do this second one, because there are a couple of steps, and I want to show you how I did mine. Alright, so let me get the camera situated. Okay, so the first thing I would do, since we cut, and if you end up cutting the box a little bit bigger, I'm going to re-stitch right here, because I cut my stitching when I cut out that, you know, that bigger box. The side seam ended up getting cut, so I want to stitch over that again, just down there at the bottom to kind of lock those stitches in place. And I'm backing up and I'm going forward, and now they're nice and strong and I don't have to worry. And I'm going to cut these threads. Okay, now I'm going to open up where the cut corner is, right here and on the other side. There's not really another way to do it, so it's the cut corners, and you just pull that apart and make sure that you have the same amount of this fabric right here on either side of that seam. Oh, sometimes I am so off camera. Okay, so you want to make sure that once you've pulled these cut corners out, like so, you don't want this one to be way over here and this one to be way over there. They need to be equal, so you need the same amount of space over here that you have over here. And you will be able to tell once this corner is lying flat and this corner is lying flat. They'll be kind of bubbly if they're not completely flat. And then pin basically on opposite, on the opposite sides of that seam. There's just too much bulk in a project like this. I mean, this seam is just as thick as it can be. So we're going to open that up and put it under the sewing machine. I just don't feel like I have this equal, so I'm going to fix it. There we go. Okay. Much better. It was truly just a fraction of an inch. So you will be able to feel when this is lying flat. You'll be able to tell you've got it just where it needs to be. Okay, perfect. I like the way that feels so much better. Alright, and then you put this underneath your sewing machine right about here. I'm not doing a 1/2 inch because I don't want to take up any more space within my bag. So I'm just kind of, eyeballing my seam allowance and making sure that everything is lined up good. Alright, and then stitch. Make sure everything's flat like it's supposed to be. Don't sew over any pins ever. There's no especially whens, it's just never sew over a pin. And then if you have to, lift your foot and try to get this seam underneath it, because you want that flat. You don't want it to be all bunched up on one side. So keep everything nice and flat. Keep it straight, stitch it. Now if you have a reverse mode on your sewing machine, hit the reverse button and go backwards. Just all the way back. Just stitch right on top of the line that you just stitched. When you get to this mess, this seam, just flatten it stay right on top. Okay, and you have done a double seam, so the bottom part of your bag will be strong and steady, and everything will be good. Now I can't wait to turn this around the other way. All right, are we ready? I'm going to turn it right side out just because I'm ready to. Let me get you sorted here. Alright, and I wanted you to see that width down there. So as you can tell, I will have quite a bit of open space inside of this Alexandra tote. And when you store your bags, these tote bags like this that have a boxed bottom, you can, and I have done this in the past, you can press a crease right here along this bottom edge on one side and on the other, and then you can just fold these side seams in and push this down like so, and then it'll just fold up, and it fits in a, you know, like in your linen closet, in your bedroom drawer, whatever, wherever you want to keep it. It'll fit in your car. They're just perfect for that. I love them, and if you press that, you see you get, it looks like a grocery sack with that inside fold like so. Okay, so now we have a couple things we have to do. Binding. So we've got to sew some binding strips together to form one long piece of binding. We need to fold and press 2.5 inch binding in half, wrong sides together, so it would be like so. Fold it in half, press it so that it is, well, let's just check. Is it 1 1/4 inches? It is 1 1/4 inch. Okay. Then we're going to place this, our binding, with the raw edge on the inside or the outside? Facing the outside raw edge and pin in place. Okay, so the outside of our tote, we're going to take this raw edge to raw edge, and we're going to pin it all along this top edge, and then we're going to stitch it with our sewing machine. Once this is done, we will then flip this to the inside. This is going to have to be a tomorrow part because I've got to get all these put together. I'm going to just make random strips. But anyway, we fold it to the inside and we can either stitch it by hand or on the sewing machine. I don't know how I'll do mine. So the way I'm going to make my binding is I'm going to take the same number of inches of each piece. Like, you know, let's just say 3 inches of each of these. Probably just the ones that I used, and probably not the solid. And I'm going to stitch them all together to form one long piece of fabric. And that is going to be the top binding for my tote. Because I want to use the red fabric for my straps. Alright, so I am ready to cut the binding pieces, and I mentioned yesterday, so a whole day has passed, and I mentioned yesterday that my plan was to cut equal pieces of these strips that are 2.5 inches wide to match up and then make one long piece of binding. Okay guys, so this part's going to be a voiceover. I decided to do those 3.5 inch pieces of the strip set, the jelly roll. The end here isn't even, and the other one was not either. They got squared off, and because they are tucked in when you put the binding all the way around, it isn't an issue there at the very end of the binding on the top. So there it is. I've got it clipped into place using Wonder Clips. That right there is where the two ends meet. I don't know if you can tell, it's folded. I was kind of picky about where these strips go. Alright, I've stitched it down, and now I am trimming that bulky seam allowance out. It really will make a difference if you go ahead and just take the extra time to trim that down and then press. I decided to use my sleeve board to press this down. I wanted it to be neat. I'm going to fold in those sides and give it one more little press right there. This just kind of helps give your bag some structure. Okay. And there it is. It just looks so cute. I really do like it. So I think at this point I was talking about how you can take that plastic needlepoint product or cross stitch, it's made out of plastic with holes in it, and you can cover a piece of that, make a sleeve, and put that down in the bottom of your bag, which will help prevent it from falling over and help it stand up good. Alright, now we're going to start on the straps. And oh boy, the sewing machine issue, I was using a Brother that I bought at a garage sale when I was working on these straps, and it was very difficult, and I ended up using George even though I probably shouldn't have. But anyway, what we do is we cut out the the batting that's been provided, just right along those lines, and don't throw the extra batting away. I think you can see you would have enough batting there in just scraps to make at least 2 more bags of your own design, and the handles could also be done in this manner or in a different manner, but still with some batting or you know, structure within the handles. These are about 30 inches long, and that's about right, I think, for this bag. You could make them, you know, shorter if you wanted to. Okay, here's the twill. Now that twill has to be cut at 30 inches. Don't cut one at 30 and then use that as the other, you know, as the way to cut it. You need to measure each one individually. And I'm now deciding what fabrics I want to use for my fabric cover on the batting. And what I ended up doing was cutting the bunny rabbits and oh, I don't remember what I used on the other one. We'll have to see. But I needed some extra length, so I just cut 2 pieces of the solid and then attached those on the end to add length. So each end of my print fabric got a section of just a solid piece of fabric. And oh, okay, perhaps birdhouses maybe was the other one. And then for the twill, we're using 30-inch pieces of the red. So I'm just finding the center of that piece of fabric by doing a little finger press, and then I'm going to take the twill and do the exact same thing. Just press it down, and when you have that folded mark in the middle, just line that up so that you have it centered on your fabric. And then it's just a matter of folding the fabric over on top of folding the fabric up on top of the batting and on top of the twill tape there, just to cover it up. And what that does is it will give you two pieces with a raw edge running down the front. And that is how we're going to match up the two pieces. I am pinning the fabric over on top of the twill. The pattern said to fold it under, but I did not want any of that twill to poke through or come through where the two pieces of fabric meet. So I just chose to fold it over the top to encase it. And I'm pinning it down there as well. Okay, now there is the batting. And I found this was a little bit too narrow, and I ended up having to do a tremendous amount of pressing on the batting to get that fabric to just stay right there. It didn't quite meet, actually, to be completely honest with you. So I trimmed down the straps. Well, I trimmed down the batting to give myself a little extra room, and I think that's what I'm doing here. Oh yeah, okay. And I mean, I just did an 1/8 of an inch. I used the 1/8 of an inch mark on the gray cutting mat and pressed, there we go, and just cut it like that. And just like that, my batting is a little bit more compatible with the size of the fabric. It was a perfect match lengthwise, it was just widthwise. It was just not even close. So now, as you can see, you just put the batting right down the center of your piece of fabric and fold the fabric over on top. And it's kind of a tight fit, but it all kind of works out in the end. Okay, so now I'm working on the birdhouses, and I just found that using my glass head pins was probably the best thing. Just slant them in at an angle so that your iron will fit right on the top, and it's like they're holding it from the side. So, and of course glass head pins or crystal head pins, which is what these are actually, will not melt, so you can put your iron right on top of them, and that will really help with the shaping and guiding of the fabric. You want it, you know, right there. Okay, almost. It gets a little fiddly here on the end. But my whole day has been very fiddly up to this point. So, okay then. More pins. Alright, I'm just going to pick up the iron and put that straight down on top of those pins. And they're just kind of pushed out to the side. I think you can see that. And we're just going to take the pins off. And it's nicely pressed. Okay, now I am using my clover clips and clipping one of the twill pieces on top of the batting piece, and both have those raw seams matched up in the middle between the two pieces there. So seam sides are together. Okay. There we go. Now I had the little brother sewing machine that I was using, and it, to be fair, it really tried. I didn't get very far. Oh, this was too, yeah, I remember now, that was, it was hanging out over the edge of the fabric, the batting and the fabric. So I had to cut it down. I had already cut it once. I forgot that I had done this too. So I ended up, this is where I had to use George. I needed the power of a Bernina. Okay guys, I made it all the way down one side and then around this corner and to here, and I just couldn't do it. So the toy machine is on the floor where it belongs, and I put George back up on my sewing table, and I'm going to finish these straps. Second set of straps, you can measure from the set you already have clipped into place. Okay. And if you're not sure, then get them clipped into place and then measure and check for 3 inches. The other thing you will need to do is make sure you don't have a twist in your handle. In other words, you wouldn't want this twisted. You want it so that when you pull this up, it will be straight. So we're going to stitch where I marked that 1 inch down, and then we're going to go up and stitch across where the binding is. We're going to stitch there as well. So we'll have 2 rows of stitching. That's going to offer us a little bit more stability on this. Okay, so when I come back, I'll show you what this looks like. But as far as a quilt as you go project, I think it is adorable. I love it. I'm pleased. I like the fabric, even though it wasn't my first choice. I think it turned out really cute, and I love the red pop in there. The other thing I would do differently, now that I know that the inside seams will not be finished, is I would finish them before I stitch this together. I'll be finishing the edges, whether I make this one again or a different one. I don't think it's going to be an issue, but in the future, that's what I want. I'm going to have finished inside edges. Okay guys, well thank you so much for joining me. I love it. So I would encourage you to give it a go. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. I will see you in the next video. Bye.